All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer, and by many people's request, and just because it's that time in the cycle, we seem to be on a certain cycle with these shows. Sonia Barrett is finally back for episode number 13 of The Human Game. So this one will be auspicious as the number suggests it should be. Sonia, how are you?
I'm 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 great. I was like trying to decide. I'm like, well, how are you? Is this a truthful moment? No, I don't know what fine means, but here I am.
So we were talking just, and we'll just start here to clarify all of that. Right before we got started, Sonia and I both had occurrences this morning. That was the game trying, the Matrix, sorry, trying to beckon us back to pay a little attention to its game rather than our own. And that's actually what it needs to survive and thrive on, right? Like everybody has to pay it a certain amount of attention every so often for it to continue to perpetuate itself, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that all, basically all the time. I mean, it's a distraction, no doubt. So, which is, the whole idea is to um keep your focus on the game. Keep your focus on the game, which is always some external stimulation slash irritation slash emotional response slash feelings, slash ego. I mean, the game, it pulls you back into that. And so I think we all, especially when you're aware, of that constant tug of war that's going on, and even though you're aware, you're still dealing with 3D things. Could be, your website or whatever it is. It still does pull you in because you're irritated, and then you still have to navigate around the system because you're dealing with system things. So that's the whole idea here. And in the end, it really still comes down to mastering it, and also figuring out, with what half of what we're talking about a lot of times is so important to us, but in the end, is it really that important? I think that's what it comes down to. That's what I realized. I'm like, that's really, why am I even doing this? Okay, let me just get a backpack and just go.
I think that's actually like an interesting, so there's the broader reality that encompasses all of this stuff, but is really based in quote unquote nature or whatever it is that we think it is. It's, you're able to experience it on a certain level outside of the like imposed quote unquote matrix game, right? So that matrix game is the thing you're talking about, right? That
Hmm.
sort of imposes its structure on you whether you want it or not, right? And then within that, we each have our own individual games that we are sort of imposing or playing, which are more entertaining and enjoyable to us, but they sometimes have to interact with the imposed matrix game. And that sort of uh, the thing you were talking about learning how to navigate it without letting it irritate you so much that it takes you out of the flow of your own game that you're playing amongst the broader reality of the matrix game, is it's challenging. That's the skill, right? That's
Right,
the master.
right, because you're always interacting with it. Whatever tiny game, personal game you're playing. Because we have to remember that even our little personal reality games are generally made up of, or as a result of, the outer game. I mean, it's just layers of these games in there, and our programming and our understanding, our belief system, everything is integrated somehow with this bigger game construct. So yeah, you're constantly being pulled in, and it's that observation point. Can we really step back and observe when it's in our faces, when it's like really in your face, and you're just like feeling like everything, you're freaking out or things are falling apart? That's a tough time. And that, I think those are the moments when, truthfully, when you should be able to step back, to stop yourself, and really look at what it is that you're irritated with, like exactly what is going on, which is what I have to do with myself. Is
Mhm.
generally, okay, so exactly what are you really upset about right now? And if I break it down like that, I really see that there really maybe is no reason for it other than I want things to go the way I want it to go when I want it to go that way. And I think that's what happens. So that's how it pulls you in.
Right.
Because and that's why we usually get upset, is because things aren't happening the way that we want them to happen right in that moment, and we don't like not having control. And so you get all upset. So but if we can step back in that moment and then just go, okay, okay, and then you disengage. If when we disengage, it does really stop a lot of that going on, because we're the one generating it anyway. We're constantly generating it by our interaction with it, by our emotional responses, by all of that. So we're constantly, it's like you're irritating the scab you have, right? So if we are able to truly step back and just go, okay, guess what's happening then when we do that? There's no engagement. If you can shut off the emotional engagement,
Yeah.
it causes that thing, whatever you're dealing with, to stop, because you're not powering it up.
Yeah.
So we're the ones powering up the irritation, but you stop, it doesn't have a power source. The power source is us. There's no power source. So therefore it allows us to be more clear in that moment. There's more clarity, which means we can then re-engage from a completely different place. But most of the time, that's not what happens. We keep re-engaging with power source, and then it charges it up and it charges it up, and it just gets more intense. Then we feel like we've had a bad day. Well, we've charged up the entire day with that same power that just now sort of you know how electricity runs, it just starts to run into everything we're dealing with for that day, and then we want to shut it down. Now we can't wait for bedtime just to start over. It's like I just want to go to bed.
So I'm just ready for bed already, and it's 10:50.
I'm really just ready just to see what movie's on that I need to watch.
Sonia likes Hallmark, Lifetime, right?
Well,
Those
no,
are her
not
favorite.
Lifetime anymore. Not
No.
Lifetime. Lifetime has got, yeah. Hallmark is all about that good feeling. Hallmark is all about that predictable good feeling. They're gonna fall in love. They're gonna figure it out. They're gonna get together. Oh, I feel so good. Okay, yeah, I want that. I want that lie right there.
All right, so I'm gonna be full disclosure on exactly what happened here this morning, right? So I was trying to take care of a matrix. So first of all, I was having a good morning, right? Like my thoughts were flowing. I'm sitting there in the bathroom doing little chores and tasks around, thinking about what I'm going to talk about here with Sonia, right? We're going to explore some aspects of the game, her game. I'm going to get some of her advice on my game because she's the master game player. All these little clever thoughts that I'm like, damn, I'm fucking smart. This is a good idea. This is a good idea. Da, 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 da. And then Laura's like, I need you to take care of a banking thing for me, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. So I come over, like, right, and I start doing it and da 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 da. But I have to do something that I haven't done before, right? And I'm doing it, I'm figuring it out, I'm going, and then it gets to the end thing to push the button to make the thing happen, and the button won't push. Like it's highlighted on the screen, I'm pushing the computer, and it won't fucking go. And I'm like, right? I'm trying to reset the page, make it do it. No matter what, it won't do it. Right?
Click, nothing.
And Laura's sitting back there waiting for the transfer to happen, and
right?
Whatever. And I'm mad because it's not right, and it won't happen. I'm like, I'm trying to. What do you want me to do? And what I'm really wanting by this point, because I'm super irritated. And once you're like addicted to that little power surge, you don't like it. Somehow you want more. I'm wanting her to start screaming at me. Instead, she's like, I want you to come over here and give me a hug. I was like, no! No! Right?
You're like, this is a setup. No!
No! And so then she comes over here. And of course, like, we figure out that, like, it doesn't, because I tried to, like, create a multiple thing for the same person, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
letting me do that, right? It
Right.
wanted me to create like a sub thing under the original creation for the person, but it
Right.
didn't tell me that. It just wouldn't work. But she
Right.
came over calmly, which was even more irritating because I
Yeah.
still wanted to be there going
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
pushing
Yeah.
the button hard, breaking the
Yeah.
computer. She comes over and calmly types it in, figures it out, and everything's just fine. And she walks away, and I'm just like, well, fuck, man, I was kind of getting into being mad. Now it fucking works.
I know.
But now I'm out of my flow, right?
Mm,
Like I was taken out of my
I
flow this
understand.
morning, right? So then it's like, if I can't have the flow I had before, then I just want to stay being mad because at least that's like fun to some little weird, like demonic altar I have from childhood or something like that. That is
Yeah,
like,
we want to
I'm
pout. We want to.
mad
Yeah,
at
we
that.
want to pout. You want to pout. I mean, yeah. My idea this morning with when I was feeling that this morning with, oh my gosh, I can't believe whatever it is was happening. I just really, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've gotta do this talk with Emily. I'm like, what would I typically would like, what I like to do ideally is just shut down the freaking game
Mhm.
completely, not do the interview, and maybe I just go to the beach. that's your, that's how I feel when it gets to be like something gets to be too much. I'm like ready to do something that is just not much at all. That's how I feel. And then I just, but what I did do is right before it, I only had a few minutes, but I did do some qigong. I did do
Mm.
some balancing because I'm like, oh, I just have a few minutes. I'm like, okay, I need to pull down the heavens. I need to balance. I need to get that balance in. So I think that those are things that we have to look at is what tools do we have? Because the challenge for us is we start pulling on all the matrix tools. The
Mhm.
matrix tools are get mad, get irritated, get frustrated, emotional reaction, heavy duty, I mean response. Those are all the survival tools that we're wired with. So
Mhm.
we respond that way. So now
And that's what their game, that's what the Matrix game is powered
well,
on.
that's what it's
Yeah.
that's how it's powered up. It's it's powered based on people's fear, based on people's irritation, so that it can keep looping or doing this feedback loop of what energetic responses then and additional experiences can come your way, more of the same thing can come your way. So we have to begin to utilize these other tools to bring ourselves back into this balance, this centeredness, as opposed to the automated self running around, because the automated self loves that. The automated self is more like, I told you, you really thought you were gonna be able to do that. It wants to like really remind you about how it happened before and why you shouldn't do it and why you're listening to this person. It likes that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you have to get it to go back in the box. Like put the dummy back in the box
Yeah.
and come and come back into center.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the tools like you use the Qigong for me. Like when I'm on information overload or frustrated or whatever, like I will just go listen to like very dry analysis of tennis matches, right? That have
Right.
no emotional component to it. They're just analyzing how the match went, right? Because
Mhm.
like somehow that's kind of like calming. It's just looking at things logically and that. So
Right,
like,
right.
I'll do that when instead of listening to some important truth revelation or this,
Yeah.
that, or go do something else that's going to irritate me. Like I know that's a thing that'll bring me down, and somehow by the time it was time to do the show here, I was ready to talk to Miss Sonia. And
Yeah.
I had that moment earlier too. I was like, why does this always happen the day of a show? I don't want to do the show now.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's how you feel. I mean, and we all have those moments. I do when I'm like, oh my gosh, now I got to do an interview, and then whether I'm interviewing somebody else, and and we're so good at switching hats too. So it's an opportunity to really observe the schizophrenic nature of our existence. Of these
Totally.
multiple personality levels of our existence. There's a lot happening here, but it's kind of like watching. What was I watching? You see it in different films where people are going off. They're going off, and then they suddenly have to switch, and it's like, yes, may I help you? A couple older couple. I think they were made like were in their late 80s. I think the man was in his 90s years ago when I had a food business. And I remember us going to me going to their door and knocking. And I heard the wife going off. Now this is funny because this is a obviously much older couple. And all I heard was her say to him was, and you can go to hell, and that's a one-way ticket. And then she opens the door and she goes, hello. And he's just like standing there back there. She's like, and you can go to hell. That's a one-way ticket. Oh my God, that was too funny. And she was all calm when she opened the door. So that's what we do. It's like, okay. Okay, well,
Hi.
welcome to Off Planet Radio.
You must really be in a schizophrenic universe because this hasn't been Off Planet Radio in a while now. So.
There you go. There you go. Exactly.
But
well,
that does connect to something I'm going to bring up with you later based on how we know which iteration of reality we are in. Right. Because of what you just said, circles back, nothing, fond memories of our times together on Off Planet Radio. But yes, we are in a different cycle now, right? So now that we've acknowledged to the audience that at some point this morning, each of us didn't want to do the show and we wanted to go to the beach or the river or whatever, here we are. Here we are with the show. My original plan for today, and you'll appreciate this as well, was we have a wonderful shared listener named Christine Anderson, shout out to you, who often will comment or remark on posts that you make or that I make that she would like to hear you and I discuss this particular topic together, right? And usually they're ones where I'm like, yeah, actually that would be really good. Yeah, noted. Okay, we'll do that, right? But I don't write it down. I don't do whatever. So this weekend I went back to try and find them, and of course I couldn't find them. And so I texted her, and I'm like, do you remember? She's like, nah, I don't remember. So out went the window went the plan for today's show. But with that will come an offer for Christine Anderson, if that she would like to be a producer of the future episodes of The Human Game with Sonia and I, she can keep a list of the topics she'd like to hear us discuss, and I'll be happy to give her producer credits in helping us remember. Because they are good ones. She does seem to understand the interplay between you and I really well to know which topic would be good. So the next plan, so plan C, plan B, I guess plan B was hatched. And that was, I went and I looked at some of the recent articles that you have posted. And some of them, like, they could mean many things.
From the media.
Right, like you tend to post a lot of articles on scientific revelations that are coming out or things about technology or whatnot. And there's always this like implied, like, okay, we're going into a more Orwellian level of thing based on like what the title of the article is. But if you actually, I know that that's not really your perception, although a lot of the people who follow us, they still sometimes perceive things that way and what not.
Sometimes it's just hilarious to me.
The hilarious, and it is hilarious, but also deep within those articles are other tells that are actually much more important than what the title of the article was.
Right.
And then there's also the thing of like, if they're actually talking about it, if they're writing articles about that this thing is beginning, it's actually not beginning. It's been being done for a long time, and we can easily point out where we see evidence of this, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of fun to do. So I went through and I found some articles that I thought had interesting points, like for the things that are going on right now and other ways to sort of perceive some of the hot topics of right now based on some of this technology. So if you're game for that, then that's the route we'll go with. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm on your train. I mean, if it derails, I'm there.
Sonia has been there for me a few times when my train has derailed.
Like if the car turns sideways, we'll get out. If they know nothing else, even if it derails, we'll be fine.
All right. Yeah. I think you came over at like 8:30 one morning because I was having a meltdown. You're like, do you need me to come over? That was the only time my train was totally derailing, and Sonia was there. It's all right. Let's get back on.
Oh my gosh. I've had a few derails.
I have to be careful about not having derailments now because it's a little farther distance, and Sonia has many magical powers, but she hasn't acknowledged to me the teleportation power.
Yeah, I haven't quite completely done that. I mean,
All
in
right.
dreams, yes, I may see you in dreams, and but
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So we'll just start. What was that? That's not what I was trying to do. We'll just start at the top here. We'll go to the one that I picked first. And so the one that I picked first was an article about. So, all right, I should probably, okay. When the article was titled, "When the Earth is Gone, at least the internet will still be working," right? And it was kind of all about connectivity, and about like that our nervous system is really wired in to the internet and blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was going to get into some stuff like that. And it didn't really, but there was one particular paragraph, which I now have navigated away from while I was looking for the article. So now you're going to have to bear with me while I try and find it again. Hold on a second. I'm sure this is really a thrilling.
I liked the title was funny to me.
Let's hear why.
While you're looking for it,
yeah, go ahead.
The title was funny. That the earth is when the earth is gone, the internet will still be there, and it was just a crack up to me, just because of, yes, our obsession and our just wired into all of our devices, and of course everything is all about what's online. So that was kind of funny to me, because it's more important these days to people to be online, to make sure their internet is working.
Mhm.
And if it's not your internet, your new car that's automated, still, I mean, it's working with some of the same process as well. And so I'm just looking at how we're all hooked up and wired up, and that becomes more important than anything else. It's like, oh my God, what would we do if we can't get on the internet for like a day, or even let's go a whole week? You can't get on the internet. All your stuff is all tied up into the internet, meaning you can't get on your phone. Your cell phone doesn't work. The internet doesn't work, which means, okay, so the television doesn't work. That's just like, there'd be so many people freaking out, because now what do you do? And then it's back on, and then you take a deep breath, like, oh my God. We've seen it when we have stuff to do, and it's like, oh, what is going on with the internet today? Okay, the
Yeah.
world's falling apart. Okay, yeah, but I need to get on the internet.
Well, and it's even like we don't even ever really get that experience, because, like, for example, last summer when it was really hot in LA, remember, like, my power was out for 36, when it was 120 degrees, my power was out for 36 hours, but my cell phone still worked. Right. I still had internet on
Something
my phone,
always works.
right? So something always works. So we haven't actually, like, very few times, I mean, sure, we have that experience if we go out of range, right? But then we're usually intentionally going out of range, or we know it's just temporary while we drive through this section of the highway.
Oh no, it's, why can't I get any signal?
Right. Sonia's like leaning over to the side, like, and hanging.
I can't get it. What? No. Then we go, well, what service provider do you have?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we get like really into it. But when they did it in San Diego a few years ago, for those people who might remember, I wasn't in San Diego. I was in Los Angeles, but my sons live in San Diego County.
What did they do?
They shut off everything. All of the power was everything. Electricity, nothing worked. It was darkness. And I think it was a day or something like that, because even the police station, the police cars, I mean, they weren't going anywhere because they couldn't get gas. Nothing could be pumped. No gas could be pumped. Nothing. It was dark. And that was definitely, I'm sure, interesting, because my son was telling me about it. He's like,
cell phones didn't work or anything?
No, because I heard about it like after.
Okay.
But everything was shut down, and we're like, okay, that had to be a test. But anyway, bottom line of it is that we really need to look at that. And of course that opens it up into a bigger discussion, which you really weren't going into. But I really feel that, people should have a car that's not, that you need to have one of those old cars.
Yeah.
You should have one of those old cars. And I think that way because, not out of fear, but this realization that everything is really hooked up to the clouds, the internet, in some way it's online.
Yeah.
And which means that yes, it can all shut down if your car completely works off of all of this digital whatever. And it can, somebody can shut it off and turn it back on. Those things I've always thought about. I think people need to, you should really have a vehicle that is old school.
Old school.
Old
See, for
school
all the people who are
generator.
like, Sonia loves 5G, deep inside, she's really a true survivalist. She's a survivalist.
You're a
She's a
survivalist.
tripper.
I was like, I knew it. I knew it.
Um,
Sonia is just all about like the expansiveness of anything, that possibilities, and no fear of any of it, but just looking at the obvious truth of what we're dealing with, which
yeah.
means that a lot of control does get taken out of our hands when all our appliances and everything is interlinked, is networked into one core system. That's just common sense. It can all just fall apart. It can all fail. Even I don't care if it's for 15 minutes. It can all just go.
All right. So there was two things based on what you just said in this article that I kind of wanted to hit on. So first of all, when you were talking about your son in San Diego, and I was talking about the heat in Los Angeles, just before we moved here to Texas, they experienced this deep freeze here, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people were without power for all of these days.
Yeah, I remember hearing
5 days, right? But
Mhm.
none of them were without internet because they were posting on Facebook about it all the time. So
Right.
this is like, like that would have been impossible to imagine at some point in prior history, right? That the power would be out and you'd be freezing to death, but you'd still be able to tell your friends all around the world about it in real time, right? So that idea of connectivity, right? So this goes into my next, and for a lot of people, that connectivity is what actually saved them. They were able to go to someone else's house that did have a little power, or even just getting the well wishes and finding out where food might be and whatever. So that connectivity, especially in the alternative media, some of us have become very suspicious of it, and we're thinking of it as being a bad thing, but in some ways there's a very big upside to it, even in those extreme circumstances. But then what the article said about how the earth may be destroyed, but the internet will still be here, right? So then the deeper question is, well, does that mean that the internet was here before all of this other stuff on earth? And yes.
And it's like, what is the internet? And I think that's what people have to look at. The internet is just what always was. We just found ways to create technologies that connect, that use that resource, and to connect all of our physical things that we've come up with. But obviously, yeah, it's kind of like saying, did life force energy just show up? It always was. We're just utilizing the tool of what already is. That's basically it, to create different networks and tap into it.
All right, so I found the paragraph that was really interesting to me. And so I'll do this. I'll screen share so people can see. So this paragraph, so it was under the section about 5G, and it talks a little bit about, people are all afraid of it and blah, blah, blah.
5G.
5G, right? And they bring up 6G and how even the mention of 6G gives people heart attacks. Like Sonia is the ambassador for 6G. So
would you stop? Because some of these people really believe that. I just don't. I'm just completely unshaken by whatever frequency they.
Well, what's interesting to me, because I talk to everybody, right? I talk to a lot of people. I'm super social and I can't shut up. And so the result of that is I talk to everybody and people tell me things. But I know a lot of people who are very afraid of 5G. Concerned about it.
Yeah.
And then I know a lot of other people who, based on their professions and the things that they've built their careers on, you think that they might be, but they're not actually. They aren't. They're actually not only not feeling like it's doing them any damage. They, in some ways, are finding some benefits. And the thing that is the common link between those people is they're generally very jovial, happy people. You're amongst them, right? That is able to find the humor in everything and is really that's just sort of a personality characteristic. They don't seem to be having any issue with 5G. They're like, all right, it is what it is. Let's do this with it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But this is the paragraph that really I thought was interesting. What it says here is, basically the beauty of 5G that we have seen, there is less about the speed and more about the latency. Consumers have often seen marketing around voluminous bandwidth, but in the first responder world, latency and edge computing tends to be the most desirable features. For instance, devices can relay video to each other on the front lines without necessarily needing a backhaul to the main wireless network. Onboard processing of image data can allow for rapid decision making in environments where seconds can be vital to the success of the mission. So what it's basically saying here is like the thing that we're all so concerned about is like the central hub and these big databases collecting everything and controlling everything. But what they're basically saying is the people using some of the devices that are powered by this are able to connect with each other even when the mainframe part isn't working. Right. They're able to transfer information between each other. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously in a first responder world, that can be helpful. But one of the things, and it's just coincidental that I looked at this when I did. So Laura and I were just out of town this weekend. We took a trip to Dallas, and the whole weekend we were experiencing a certain level of person to person, I guess you would call it latency or transferring of images or ideas, like a level of telepathy that goes beyond things we've experienced before. We've always had some of it, right? But like we'd be driving or something and I'd have a thought. And the thought wasn't related to anything in the environment. So it's not like I looked at a sign and it reminded me of something and then I said something. I'd have a thought that was seemingly unrelated to anything. And I'd think the thought and then I'd be like, I wonder if I should tell Laura. And then the moment I finished, I wonder if I should tell Laura. Laura would say the same thing that the thought had just been for me.
Right.
Right. So the level of connectivity, like either these networks, these highly advanced networks that we're all supposed to be either in love with or afraid of, are either tapping into some level of connectivity that's been there all along, like we described, or that one of the like latent features of this technology is that it allows for this person-to-person communication that is even outside of the sort of like reach or surveillance of the main system itself, right? That it's generating that much transfer of information between people who have connected to it at some way, at some point, that this level of like telepathy and sort of, now there's some people that I don't know that I want to have that kind of connection with. But in this case, it's like, it's a nice thing, right? That's kind of like, it was really cool. But these were very granular, exact, specific details into sentences that were transferred almost immediately and completely. And there's something, and these are not the kind of things that would be worth creating like synthetic insertions of, right? Kind of stuff. And I think that's actually, I don't know if it's caused by technology or if the technology that we think of as magical has just been tapping into this natural connectivity network anyway. But like, we were really having fun with it and thinking it was like actually like really cool. And there's nothing, like the more you experience that, then you don't have to even verify it in any way vocally. And if you are in a fucking crazy situation, you want to be able to communicate with each other without having, you know, other people necessarily hear what you're talking about or whatever. So we thought it was really cool. So when I read that paragraph, I'm like, that is really interesting. And that's, you know, this other way of perceiving this technology that people don't generally think of. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is the fact that we are naturally transmitters and receivers anyway. I mean, we are our devices, our bodies are devices. I mean, we are transmitting and we are receiving information. So like radio waves out there, our thoughts are they stream, they're not in our heads. And I think that's one of the things that we forget. It's that thoughts, the whole processing of it, you know, thoughts are said to levitate above the head, but when you look at that and you realize that they're already out there, and I'm trying not to sneeze, they're already there, and it's like bandwidths. I mean, it's radio frequencies, and it's easier to tap in, to pick up, transmissions. You can pick it up from anybody, but you guys are even picking it up more. Sometimes probably because even the field that you're in, I mean, the literal field area that you're in, maybe there is less congestion in transmission ability, just like in computers, like the internet. It's easier to for the information to be picked up. Now, it could also be where you're in a situation where you could be among a bunch of people, and there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of um not like
Mhm.
transmissions, right? Yeah, so you have a variety of these different kinds of frequencies of thoughts and data being streamed around that may scramble, may make it a little bit harder maybe to necessarily tap into one. So then you look at people who um tend to like pick up, like, I forget what you call them, like everybody talking at
Yeah,
once, like they're overwhelmed,
they're
they can,
clairaudient and stuff.
right,
Clairaudience. Yeah.
they can pick that up, and so they're picking up basically all the bandwidth going. It's like if the TV station and the radio stations and everything was playing all at the same time for you, and you're like, oh my gosh, you can't really pick any one particular one out. They're all coming at you. But you could, if
Yep.
you got good enough, if you were able to balance yourself enough to actually extract a particular conversation or particular station, you tune in to be able to do that. To me, those are all things that we're going to be doing and are doing, and sharpening those abilities and skills, because really there's really nothing that we truly can't do. We just have lost we practice our ability to do it because we haven't been doing it. uh,
And our belief that we
and
can.
our belief system obviously is all tied into it, which is why we haven't been doing it, because
Yeah.
we believe that we can't, or we've relied on these very simple, two-step process. The only way that I can find out anything from you is I have to pick up the phone and call you, or I have to meet you, or in this case, I have to send you a message, or I have to send you a text message. That's really where the thinking sort of evolved to some degree, as opposed to before, with picking more, being more available to picking up
Yeah.
the not transmissions of computers and all that energy that's out there, frequencies, but human, i- um just complete human streaming information. And then you have the noosphere, the where, which is above, what is it, it's there's a stratosphere, it's anyway, it's
Yeah.
above, above the atmosphere, it's above in that level where human thoughts are, is supposed to really kind of connect in that field, in that in that area, which is why they're able to do that conscious, that, what is it again, that conscious, not I want to say conscious media, that's not it, but they're able to do that research project,
Yes.
yeah, the consciousness, I can't remember,
I
research
know what you're
project out of
talking about. Yeah.
yeah, out of Princeton. Why they're able to do it, why they're able to detect the consciousness of people, mass consciousness, because they're able to pick up the brain waves of people right there in that particular space, and see what we're not seeing on our lower, on our little level. We're not seeing that we're actually picking up things that are coming, catastrophes that are coming.
Yep.
It's showing the brain wave, your brain is picking that up, and you may be affected so a little bit by it, kind of like people who, oh, their knees act up when it's going to rain.
Mhm.
They're picking up these transmissions from all over, and so I think we have to come into a place where we start changing our interpretation of some of these things and realize that we are constantly just picking up transmissions all over the place. We're picking
Yeah.
up transmission all over the place, and just see the natural technology of existence.
And then with the people, like, people comment all the time about how much they enjoy your laugh or my laugh, right? There's a particular frequency or resonance to it and a particular sound. So the people who've listened to us laugh enough times, there could be like tons of chaotic back noise, like white noise, static, other people talking. But if your cackle came through, they'd be able to identify that Sonia's laugh. And that's something you can
Don't
attune
get me
yourself,
laughing again.
right?
I'm about to laugh. We both have everybody says we both have these crazy laughs, but
Crazy laugh, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing is, and this is something that I always try to remind people of, like one of the favorite tricks of like these corporations and technology companies and the military and governments and weapons companies is to say that they invented something when really they just discovered it or tapped into it and it was always there, but because they found it first, they are pretending that they created it, right? And so a lot of these things that they deliver up to us as technologies that we're like, wow, that's amazing, how did they do that, and I must do it the way that they say to do it, right? Like, it's not really exactly what happened. And what actually happened is there was something that exists since the beginning of time naturally that they just tapped into, and therefore you can too, and you don't necessarily need to buy their device, so they'd like to think that you need to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But I think what happens too is that we have become very device oriented, and if it's not device, people do like step 1 and step 2. They want an easier way to do things, and that's a big part of how we do get pulled in, because they realize that people want what convenience.
Yeah.
People want convenience, and conveniences are the way that corporations and the government and
You
all of
always
these.
sacrifice something when you go for convenience, or kind of thing, right? Like we become, and it's not always about like laziness per se in the typical sense, but whenever you go for something because it's easier or more convenient or whatever, there's always a sacrifice of some sort of like of the original resonance of something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we have to, again, it's not, for people listening, it's not like a good or bad thing. It's just what you choose to do. I mean, there's no right thing or wrong thing, like you're a bad person because you want these conveniences. I think that you have to look at what it affords you, and is there something that you miss out on in terms of your own internal exercise that maybe you need to do, that you're taking yourself away from that. So what happens when that particular convenience isn't available, but you've not exercised your own ability to maybe do something? Now you're like, oh my god, what am I going to do? And so to me, I feel like one of the core things is for us to really tap into this availability of self and all the things that we really technically are able to do that we don't remember that we can. It's all about exercising our abilities, all about welcoming the things that we don't know about ourselves, welcoming the possibilities. I think we have to open ourselves to that, giving ourselves permission to be able to tap into those really core potentials that are there. That's what I see particularly right now. So technology serves so many incredible purposes. And I think that one of the great things that I saw is the opportunity that it affords me, meaning that I am forced to stay ahead of these technologies. So therefore you're not afraid of it. When you are not pushing yourself, because that's what it's doing. I keep saying that for years. I keep telling people technology is really pushing you to tap into this technology of these bodies, and beyond that. That's really what it's doing. Instead of being in fear of the technology, if there is 5G, then certainly 5G is really nothing. Honestly, I'm not saying that people aren't affected by it. That is not what I'm saying. There are people that are going to be feeling more sensitive to it. But I want people to really understand that if they talk about 5G, that means it's not like they got up like yesterday and go, oh yeah, we just created 5G 24 hours ago. And then here it is. Everything, they have been in the works for a very long time. So if they've done 5G, are they on to 10G? I think people just have to be open to realize this is the human game. This is the way it operates. How are you being taken in by all of this? No, I am not shaken by any of it, because what did I say earlier? I need to stay ahead of all of this. All this technology is smaller than you and me. It is not as big as we can be, because there's no limitation to how, what our grandness is and what our capabilities are.
So I think one of the things that people like may miss in this is part like, and this goes to what you're saying about you need to stay ahead, right? Probably something people don't know because they're not in your day-to-day life, but I do know, or whatever, is that you spend a portion of time every day outside of the reach of technology without your device, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah.
day, you know what Sonia feels like out there in nature without the device and with not being near other devices or towers or this and that kind of thing, right? So you like that's baseline, like where Sonia checks in, and then you use the technology to do your business or to explore new things or to do whatever. But having that period of time every day where you're away from it creates this situation where it's like, okay, this is what it feels like when there's none of it. This is what it feels like when I'm immersed in it. And there's a very clear difference because you don't ever just stay immersed in it for ongoing, lengthy periods of time. So when you start to know what your body feels like, what your mind feels like away from it, and then the difference, like that's a actually helps to raise your sensory perception of like what is an
Absolutely.
environment where something is at play, right?
That's the core, that's the technology though that we
Yeah.
have to hook up to. That's the thing. Nature supersedes all of this. And the only reason why, again, we have these technologies, and you asked that question earlier, was the internet always there? Well, that's because, yeah, we're using nature. We're tapping into nature to create these devices that allow these connection points that we call the internet, or whatever, in the cloud or whatever. We're really just utilizing nature. So yes, when I go to nature in the morning, when I go out there, it is incredibly balancing. I am truly connecting with the planet. I am actually even asking some of the trees and the rocks to show me some things that I might not know at this time. I mean, I'm literally asking. And sometimes I'll say to one tree in particular, that's massive. I said, your roots go really deep, so I know you've got a lot of information, a lot of earth history, a lot of data. And then I'll look at everything else, then I'll look at the dirt, and I ask everything to provide me with more information, show me more. I need to understand more. What is it that I'm not seeing? um and I've been doing that for years. And then, sometimes I look down, and I talked about it on, I think I was interviewing, I don't remember the person I was interviewing. I talked about that, the fact that I can look on the ground, and I can see spirals everywhere. I very seldom talk about that, but I thought maybe at one point I was like off. It was just me. But I see the what they call golden mean, the spiral in yeah, in everything. And what's interesting is you see the symbol that I use for myself
I
for my
love it.
website is spot, but I didn't know that when I did that. I didn't connect the two. It was when I was doing an interview and I mentioned it. The woman that I was talking, she said, "Oh," she says, "that's why you connected the two." And I was like, so I mean, so it's like nature is talking to you. And real quickly, Emily, I had another experience a week, maybe about 2 weeks ago. I went hiking, and I I did some qigong out there as well, but I was in a real balanced space, and I always think everything before I leave. And I was standing there, and I just decided I was just going to stand there, and my eyes were open though, and I stood there, and I was ever so calm. And suddenly, what I was seeing was, and we all have seen mist, we've all seen the mist, but what was different here is the mist was so in, because you couldn't see it. If you're walking around, it's like looking outside now, you don't see any mist, you just see the air, right? Everything looks clear. That's how it was, that's how it looked. But when I stopped in that moment and I just stood there, suddenly I could see it started in my peripheral vision. Suddenly I was like, wow, look at that. It is. And I just didn't move, because as soon as I shifted just a little bit,
It goes
it
away.
was back to everything. And I did it again. I did it several times. And it was like, wow. So it reminds me of what we do not see that is happening. Did that just appear? Because no, it's always there. It's always happening. But I stilled myself enough, and I could feel a conversation. I could feel that. And again, this goes back to our conversation earlier about distraction. If nothing else, these things begin to show us just how distracted we are and how much we do not see of what's going on in this very space, all kinds of realities and other essences that are right here in this moment, but we're so fixed on our version of reality and our distractions. Not a good or bad thing, but I'm just saying we're so fixed on it that there's a lot that we don't see, and even our own solutions we can't see it because we're so invested in our madness.
Okay, based on what you said, I want to say a couple of things. Like you mentioned the spirals, and I want to suggest to you, based on what you said and that experience you described, that you check out this guy, and he would actually be probably a great interview for me, for you.
Mhm.
Sorry, I think for me, some of the challenges it would be difficult to listen to both of us. But you have a different energy, especially when you're on KPFK, and I think this would be fascinating for people. Check out the work of Gabriel Kellerman.
Mhm.
Right? He is an artist. He's like a mathematician, artist, scientist, but mostly an artist, right?
Mhm.
He draws these incredible pictures of nature, but he shows you the inner workings with their projective geometry, what we see on the outside, and then the
Mhm.
and the meanders and the
Mhm.
spirals and the energy of what everything is made up of. I think
Mm.
you love his stuff. I'll send you a link. But
That'd be interesting.
he is
Yeah.
he is phenomenal. Like it's almost terrifying how brilliant this guy is. I think you would like it, though. I think he'd like you.
Have you ever seen um oh god, oh my gosh, McCloskey. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot his first name. His material, his art material.
I'll check it out.
Oh my gosh, how did I can't believe that. I'm so embarrassed that I can't, something reason I can't remember his
Let me
first name.
know and we can revisit it another.
But yeah, but anyway, he was an act, well, he's still an actor. From He was on Dallas. He played Mitch on Dallas. So
On
anybody
down.
from the old school.
Okay.
Uh, but anyway, his work, it kind of reminds me of what you're saying, where it's just incredible as to how fine-tuned and detailed and intricate. Probably like this guy picking up things that you had no idea could be there. So yeah, I definitely will check out this artist.
I'll send you.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually did a show about him. I didn't interview him, but I did a show about
Mm-hmm.
him with the Crimmies. I'll send you that show and I'll send you the
Okay.
website and stuff. But I actually think you interviewing him would be a really great show. I think you could do a better job of interviewing him than I could. So I will pass that baton to you if you like it. And
Yeah,
ask.
I'll check it out and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check it
Okay.
out and
Then
see.
the other thing, and I'm going to skip over the other articles I had pulled because we talked about that one for longer than I
Mm-hmm.
expected, but it was wonderful. Just because of what you said about you saw spirals in the dirt. So one of the
I
articles,
always see
other
him. Mm-hmm.
articles that I had pulled was
Mm-hmm.
the one that you had linked to that said, in the moon landing of genomics, scientists sequence ancient DNA from dirt. And so I read this
Mm-hmm.
article that you had posted about, right? And it's basically now they don't need to have a fossil because the animal will have decayed into the animals will have decayed into dirt.
Right,
So
right,
they can put things back together based on things they find in the dirt.
right.
I thought this was really, really fascinating for a number of reasons. And the other thing I wanted to say to you, based both on your dirt comment and on this, what you were talking about, like tapping into other realities, it's not a wonderful movie, but the idea is interesting. And I'd like to talk with you about it at some time. Watch the new movie on Netflix called Synchronic. And because it gets into location and tapping into other realities. And
Mm-hmm.
it sort of connects to what we're talking about here. But that was an aside. Back to this. This explained something to me when I was listening to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And listening to you talk about what you were just talking about. I have had experiences both in nature when I'm exercising or just sitting on the ground in dirt, but also when I've like had a psychedelic experience in different locations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that like Laura and I have tried to make sense of for like 2 years now is we had this one psychedelic experience outside of Palm Springs, about 29 miles north of Palm Springs. There's this place called Hidden Passage Ranch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting out there, and we had a lot of wild experiences out there. Some are more explainable than others, but we were basically sitting in the dirt. Like we were just we had our feet on the dirt, right? And at one point, like we are seeing, like, right, not up in the sky, but just like a few feet off the ground, we're seeing animals, right? Like projected, sort of geometric, like in like almost neon colors, like lions, tigers, things like this, right? And it's like, what the heck, right? It was weird. Where I did, like, it looked like there was a wall that had these things painted on them, but we had been there during the day and there was no wall. Like we were just sitting out there at night tripping. There was no
Were
wall.
you eating gummies or were you smoking?
Mushrooms.
Okay.
But like, why the lion and tiger or whatever? And why did it look like there was a wall there with a mural on it that we couldn't see before? So what was super interesting is the next day, what we noticed is right where we had seen that projection or that wall, there was a power line. So there was energy running through there. But my question is, like, with the addition of energy to it, was literally the genetic code in the dirt, like creating these visuals that we're seeing animals that aren't present there now, but could have been present there in history. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel that way about all of it. When we say that the animals, such and such animals, disappeared, I mean, did they? I mean, there's a lot of factors here. I think that we leave, it's also like we leave the everything leaves an echo of itself.
Yeah.
And so that's why they can pick up, like even with the Native Americans, they can pick up something that was going on, you know, maybe it was a powwow, whatever, on a particular day, they suddenly, you hear it in that space. Well, nothing goes away. It's like sound doesn't really end. I mean, it just keeps going. So I think that is a big part of what happens, that maybe what you're also seeing, because if past, present, and future do exist at the same time, I'm always saying that then everything is always there. Every potential moment from the past is still there. It's still there. You might not be part of that moment in time, that past, but it's still there. And then we get these overlapping experiences, or overlapping realms, or you pick up the frequency, and it appeared to you guys in that way. You were able to see it in that way. But if you somehow tapped in for whatever reason, if there was more an opening, you would probably actually see the actual animals. Like,
I never have seen that anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
And so
they're still happening.
There's other things, like whenever I do mushrooms, there are certain similarities to all the other trips, and then there are some things that are different. And it would be fascinating to know that it was literally because of the ground which you are on at that moment that your body is perceiving all of this information. And I think that we hear all the time that our DNA is holographic in nature anyway. So it would make sense if it's holographic in nature, and then you have something going on in your body that sharpens your perception or opens up something, that then you'd be able to sort of see this.
Yeah, right? Then basically, yeah, because I mean, our brains are just they're the interface, and they are in constant, our brain is in constant connection with everything, because our brain, we reduce it to the mass in our heads, but it's just connected with every potential space. It's just that obviously it filters for the focused reality that we seem to be a part of. But yeah, it's tapping into all potential spaces anyway. That's the whole thing. And it gets triggered. Then the chemical response allows that, because all of it is a trip. I mean, we are on this chemical trip, natural chemical trip by our brains with DMT and all these other chemicals. That's the thing that we have to realize, is that that's really what it is. We are, into some degree, hallucinating the whole experience anyway, this entire holographic experience. So yeah, we can always tap into everything. And that's the reason why some of these people will say, they feel they come back, they were Mary Magdalene, and you get 1,200 people that were Mary Magdalene, or, Nefertiti, or
Nefertiti and Mary Magdalene are my favorite ones.
Like thousands of people. the bottom line of it is that we are able to tap into the personality. We're able to tap into the character type,
Archetype, yeah.
yeah, of anybody. You know, I can close my eyes and pick up the feeling and experience of it, basically anyone.
Have you ever felt like me, Sonia?
I try not to. I try to leave that alone. That's
It's too scary, huh?
it's too scary. But here's
The
what
feeling
I
is mutual.
yeah, no, yeah, you don't want to do this. You don't want to take this ride. I when I was a child, um, there were some people, was my family, were to church. And so, you know, people would come over. We were very well engaged with the church, and we'd have prayer meetings and all that stuff, right? So I would be talking to my cousin who just passed, who's quite a bit older than me, and she would be telling me about somebody from then, from the past. I'm like little, you know, 2, 3, whatever. But the whole thing that would fascinate her is that she could tell me who the person is, and I could tell her details about that person. I could tell about their personality. I could just pick up, and everybody can do that. You can just pick everybody up, whether you knew them or not. And why? It's just like I've been saying, because everybody's a streaming program. Nobody wants to believe that, but we're just streaming. The character of Sonia, I'm a data stream. So are you. We are streaming. So since everything is made of information, is data, it's all streaming. It's just different ways in which it's streaming. Well, the way the physical body that seems to be so dense, the way it's streaming, and our minds and all of that. So yes, you are able to tap in and pick up the stream, the data stream, the information, the frequency of anyone, really, and know about them.
It
Anybody can tap in.
it opens up a lot of questions, and I'll leave this topic alone, but it actually relates to a new series I'm starting with another person this called Navigating the Netflix Realm, about how all of these streaming services have changed the nature of our reality, even when we think we're not watching Netflix.
Right.
Whatever, yeah. So, all right, let's do this. Let's wrap up the public hour here. We're going to move into the patron segment, and we're going to talk about a kind of controversial topic in the alternative media because of some of the things it has to do with. And it is about how to sort of recognize and kind of what to do with it when a player in the game or a player's game gets hacked, and how that sort of affects the other people who are in their sort of newosphere or data stream, for lack of a better word. And we're going to use some recent examples to sort of get into this. This is something we've been wanting to talk about for a while. It's a little controversial. We're going to do it in the patron segment. But before we go, Sonia, tell people what you got right now and where they can find you.
Oh, I wanted to say that who I was speaking of was Lee McCloskey.
Lee McCloskey. Okay.
Lee McCloskey. You go look him up. He played Mitch on Dallas, but his work is just incredible. Anyway, so
Funny, just so that I'm going to pull Sonia into playing the glass bead game with me, whether she knows it or not. The city that we were just in, where we had this experience of all this telepathy this weekend, was Dallas. So Sonia brought us right back around to Dallas with her Lee McCloskey comments. Go ahead, Sonia.
How did I bring you back to Dallas? Anyway. again, I'm not going to try to get in Emily's head. I've got enough dealing with my own.
What are you talking about, Willis?
I don't know. But therealsoniabarrett.com is my website, therealsoniabarrett.com. And I do the monthly free teleconference every first Wednesday of the month. And I do the members get together and, talk about movies and cutting edge scientific or sci-fi things that are going on and how it relates to now. And that's the expansion portal. And I think that's probably it. There's a lot of other things going on, doing a lot of private workshops, people who have been part of some of these workshops. And this part now, the prerequisite is that you've had to have been in some of these other workshops to participate. So those are not on the website, but all the websites, all the workshops that I've ever done, and the more recent ones, they're all on the website in the store. for people to participate in, and they just go far and wide and really, really, really out there. I might be doing something different in January. I haven't put it up yet, but keep an eye out for that. I'm planning to do a very different um retreat, separate from the August retreats, but this is for any and everybody. So it'll be different. So that'll be in January.
You
Okay.
can always find Sonia back here on a regular basis playing the human game with me.
Yeah, yep, that's for sure.
We'll see you at patreon.com/off planet media or emilymoyer.locals.com for the second segment. See you over there. Bye bye.